Hello everyone, I'm Tavish from Georgetown, and I'm going to be talking about hidden voice commands. And this is a joint work with my colleagues Youngkai, Micah, Clay, and Ben Shaw from Georgetown, and Nicholas, Tavish, and David from UC Berkeley. And this work was presented at Houston Security 2013, so it's just a replay of that work. So this is something to do with voice. Ian and Alex talked about image, I'm going to talk about voice. So over the last few years, voice recognition systems and personal assistants like Google Now, Apple Siri, Microsoft Cortana, etc., they have become like super popular. They provide a very nice usability feature to users that you can talk to your device and it will do something for you, answer questions, set up appointments, send emails, post to Twitter. So basically your personal robots kind of stuff. iPads. And with things like smartwatches, the traditional touch and type input is getting smaller and smaller, and voice is taking over a major role and being one of the more powerful user input. A step further, with Amazon Echo and Google Home and other IoT devices that sit in your phone at your home, they're always listening to voice input and have completely eliminated any traditional touch and type input. So if you want to interact with those devices, it has to be over the voice. Now this opens up a very interesting question. Voice, think of a voice input as just like any other input that you would give to your phone. But before giving inputs to your phone, most of you here would have like maybe a fingerprint sensor or a PIN code, or maybe some password to get into the device before you can actually do something with your device. But with the voice system, we can ask this question, which is very like authenticated identity. So that is the same question for voice. Today, I can go to your phone or your Echo or your Siri and just listening to audio commands. I can give an audio command that say, okay Google, text a premium SMS number. What it will do, it will send the text message to a premium SMS number and charge the sender of the message some money and then transfer it to the receiver. So if I want to monetize this attack, I can do it. Another example is, hey AI, pay evil guy $1,000. This is coming in near future because right now I think Siri has opened up this SDK to third parties where you can transfer money. If you have Square Cash app, you can transfer money over Siri. Another example would be, okay Google, open evil.com. So in this particular case, you can open a web page, and if you can open a web page on a target device, the adversary can set up a malicious web page that can exploit further vulnerabilities on the target system to even open up more attack surface for other future attacks. But you all must be thinking, okay, so what? This is not very interesting because if I say loudly, okay Google, everyone's phone send me $1,000, you'll probably someone will come and punch me and like, okay, what the heck is going on? And then you can probably stop your phone from doing those particular actions. So this is not very interesting. So throughout this talk, I will try to come up with commands or voices which are actually stealthy. And by what I mean, so here's an example. Let's say I'm the adversary here, and I want to open up all your web pages and point them to openevil.com. But in this case, all of you will understand what I said, and then you'll probably be able to take action to stop this from happening. What we want to come up is some version of this openevil.com, which is something, I don't know which language it is, but something that's not easily understandable by humans. But both of them are able to trigger the same functionality on the device. So the end goal is to come up with audio inputs such that when given to the phone over the air, they can trigger some functionality on the target device which the attacker wants to monetize or will be benefited from. So before going into the details, I'm just going to go quickly over the background of how actually speech recognition works. So you have an input audio signal, and then you feed it to like a machine learning algorithm which will generate some text. Actually, it's not that simple because the input audio is very high dimensional. So usually the audio is sampled at like 44,000 kilohertz per second, and if you have a few minutes of audio, you'll have millions of frames. So before the machine learning algorithm, you have a feature extraction step, which essentially takes the high dimensional input audio and then reduces the dimensionality by extracting some relevant features from the input audio before actually feeding it to the machine learning algorithm. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this box, feature extraction, because this is relevant for understanding the way we generate our attack commands. So this is the input audio. So usually the first step is to sample the audio in overlapping frames. So you take the first frame, you sample it, then you take an overlapping frame, you take it similarly, and so on. And then you compute a function, in this case an MFCC, which basically reduces the dimensionality of the input. So MFCC is the most common way that has been studied in literature. So I'll just give an example of here MFCC. It takes the input from the time domain and converts it into a frequency domain, and then maps it into a MEL scale. MEL scale essentially tries to mimic how humans understand speech, and it aggregates closely spaced frequencies into one energy level. So now the speech recognition looks something like this. You have an input audio and take a feature, then pass it to a feature extraction step, which then gives you some feature vectors, and then you feed those feature vectors to your machine learning algorithm, which will then produce the corresponding text. So this was the background. Now let's talk about attacks. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is a white box attack, in which the assumption is that the adversary knows everything about the target speech recognition system. He knows what kind of system they use. Is it a hidden Markov model? Is it recurrent neural networks? And what are the various parameters for the system that it takes to make it work? And this is a realistic assumption. So assume that if a target speech recognition system is using an open source system, such like the CMU Sphinx, this attack is relevant in the practical world. So this was the normal speech recognition pipeline, and for generating the white box attack, what we will try to do is invert this particular pipeline. So let's say the attack command that we want to generate is something like send text to 1234. So we start with this particular text, and then we will feed it to the machine learning algorithm, the inverse of the machine learning algorithm, which will then produce some feature vectors. Now, if you have these feature vectors and then send it forward to the machine learning algorithm, it will produce this particular text. Now, once you have these feature vectors, you pass it through the inverse of the feature extraction step, such that it will give you some starting audio, which when sent forward from the feature extraction step, would give you those feature vectors, which again, when forward through the machine learning algorithm, will give you the desired text. Now, for this to work, there are two constraints. First, can we invert the machine learning algorithm? And second, can we invert the feature extraction? Fortunately, for our benefit, previous work in image recognition has shown that you can invert the machine learning algorithm, and we directly leverage their work to adapt it to the audio. However, the second step of the feature extraction is what we did to make the white box attack work, and I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail. So the first naive way of trying to invert the feature vectors. So before starting from this step, we assume that we already have these feature vectors from the inverse of the machine learning algorithm. So these x0, x1, and x2 are the feature vectors, and the first thing you could do, you could just pass it through the inverse MFCC function, which would just add some noise. And then you have these frames. And then to reconstruct the original input audio, you can try to merge these frames, but this will fail because remember, when you do speech recognition, the frames have to be overlapping. And in this case, these are not overlapping frames. So you may not have a very good reconstruction of the audio. And we did try this, and this doesn't work. So next step would be, okay, you take these frames and then you overlap these frames before you merge. But again, if you see, the second half of the first frame is not identical to the first half of the second frame, and so on. So again, if you merge these, this will not give you an accurate reconstruction, and this won't work as an attack command. So we do something much more intelligent. So in this case, we keep the first step same. We take the first set of feature vector, and then we just invert it using inverse MFCC to get an audio frame. For the second step, what we do is we take the second half of the first frame and fix it as the first half of the second frame. Then we take the feature vector x1, and we do a black box gradient descent to try to come up with an input also for the second half, such that when you take this full frame and then you pass it forward through the MFCC function, it will give you a feature vector which is very close to x1. And we do this for all the following frames. Again, we take the second half of the second frame, and then we fix it as the first half of the third frame, and then we take the feature vector x2, and again do a black box gradient descent to come up with an input for the second half of this third frame, such that when passed to the MFCC function in the forward direction, it will give us a feature vector which is very close to x2. And then when we try to merge these frames, they merge nicely because we already fixed the paths that were overlapping paths. So, okay, now I'm gonna play some demo. So this is the first. So that's an audio command. I can play it again. And that particular command said, okay, Google, browse to evil.com. So this is really interesting, because these are really hard to understand. But again, as they mentioned in the previous talk, this example only works if you generate the attack command on your computer and feed it directly to the speech recognition system, which may not be very practical because you wouldn't have access to someone's phone that you play an audio on the phone and then send it directly to the speech recognition system. So to make it practical for playing it over the air, we need to factor in the various loss that happens over the air when you actually play the audio from the speaker to a target microphone. So we need to factor in for the signal attenuation, and then we need to compensate that information loss. So to actually do this, what we did, we created a physical model of the air of what happens when the audio leaves the speaker and then is recorded by the microphone. And then we use this model to predict the effects over the air, and we factored this information through our black box gradient descent process, such that we adjusted the inverse computation using the black box gradient descent, such that when that particular audio played over the air would give us the MFCC, which is similar or equal to the MFCC given by an audio fed directly to the speech recognition system. So this way we were able to make it practical from going from very obfuscated command to something like these, which I'm going to show you now. So this is the first demo that works over the air when played from the speaker and then recorded by a microphone and fed to the speech recognition system. So I'm just going to play it again. So that one said, okay, Google, take a picture. Here's another one. That's kind of easy. Come on. Any guesses? Okay, so that one said, okay, Google, text 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another one, last. That one's easy now. Okay, so that one said, okay, Google, browse to evil.com. So now if I play it again, probably all of you will know what it said. Yeah, so there's a very interesting article on this online where, I'm just diverting from the top, where they actually played some noise and then asked people to understand what they said, and they were not able to understand. And then they told them, okay, this is what it said. And when they played again, people said, oh yeah, that's what it says. But in reality, it was just noise. It did not say what it said it was saying. So it's just all those primitive effects. Okay. So to evaluate, because since this was sort of subjective evaluation and the authors felt like we were biased, like what was being said, we conducted an Amazon Mechanical Turk study where we actually gave the samples of the normal audio as well as the talk audio and asked evaluators, like actual real human evaluators, like what they thought the audios said. And to make them do their best, we asked them, okay, in the instructions, that if you do the transcriptions correctly, we'll give you some added bonus. And this was a very conservative test because we did not have control of the test setup, like how many times they could play the audio, they could use noise cancelling headphones, and all that kind of stuff. So here are the results for the white box attack. So on the left, we asked them to evaluate normal commands as well as attack commands. And the human understanding will reflect how good the humans did, and then the machine understanding, how well the machine actually understood those or was successfully able to transcribe the commands. So for the normal commands, humans did 74% of the time. Humans are not perfect. So this was just to establish a baseline, not assuming 100%. And for the attack commands, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, 1 out of 377 evaluators was able to understand correctly. That one guy awesome. So practically, like, okay, 0% of the people were able to understand our white box attack commands. And for the machine understanding, we didn't really test with the CMU strings because it has built-in high accuracy. But for the attack commands, like out of like 82% of the time, the CMU strings target speech recognition system was able to correctly transcribe our attack commands over the air. So pretty cool. So, and if you compare these two numbers, this shows like there is a certain gap of how like humans understand speech and how the machines understand speech, and this gap can be exploited. So now you all must be thinking, okay, again, it's a white box attack model. What if I want to target Google, or what if I want to target Siri or Cortana? For a white box, the attacker requires to know how exactly the speech recognition system works, which may not be very realistic. And it only works in the absence of any background noise in an echo-free room. So you can think of the white box attack as an upper bound of how good can your attacks be if you are able to know the target speech recognition system. You can 82 with a gap of like 82%, you can fool the human while still being able to get the functionality out of the target machine. So an obvious question to ask is, can we remove the white box assumptions? Can we do it in a practical scale? Can we do the attacks against like Google, Apple, or any speech recognition system which the attacker does not have access to? And the answer is yes, you can do it, but with certain trade-offs, as we should see. So second, I'm going to present a black box attack, which assumes complete lack of knowledge of the target speech recognition system. The only thing that the attacker needs to know is to have a black box oracle access to the target speech recognition system. And by oracle access, I mean the attacker should be able to issue some queries to the target speech recognition system, and the speech recognition system will reply with what it thinks was being said in the input audio. So here is a very high-level idea of what black box attack does. So the y-axis shows the amount of information in any input signal. The lower bar in yellow shows the minimum amount of information that's required by the machine speech recognition system to understand a particular audio. And this may change for like different audio commands, but it's just like a high-level idea of why the black box attack might work. And the top bar here shows the minimum amount of information that's required by humans to understand speech and correctly decipher the audio and make sense of it. So below this region, there's no recognition by human or machine. So if an audio has information that falls in this particular range, it won't be understood by machines or by humans. What is interesting is this particular green area. This is the area we want to target to come up with black box audio commands, such that the amount of information in these commands is greater than the minimum threshold that's required by the machine to understand it, but it's still lower than the minimum threshold required by the humans to understand the particular audio signal. So the attacker's goal is to come up with an attack audio such that when fed to the target machine learning algorithm, is able to produce the desired output. And how we do this is, on the contrary to the white box attack where we started with the actual text, for the black box attack, we start with the actual audio command. So if I want to generate the attack to be send text to 1234, I will start with an audio command that says send text to 1234, and then feed it to what we call an audio handler, which will do its magic and then produce some attack candidate which the attacker can then use to do the attack. So how this audio handler works. So let's change the example and let's say openable.com. So we start with the actual audio of openable.com. The first step we do is do a feature extraction with these MFCC parameters. Now, two things. The feature extraction step is important, that will give us some acoustic features. This particular step, you can think of it this way as we take an input audio and then we are trying to preserve the relevant acoustic features only and get rid of everything else to get these acoustic features. And the MFCC parameters here signify, you can think of it as a knob that determines how much amount of acoustic information you want to keep from the original input in those acoustic features. You can press the knob to one side and then let's say, I want to get rid of everything, so this will nothing be just noise. And if you keep it too high, let's say I want to keep all the audio features that was in the input. So, and then you just take these acoustic features and pass it through the inverse MFCC computation step, which does nothing but just invert all the steps of the MFCC by adding white noise over these features to give us the attack command. So this is how the attack black box attack is generated. Now, to actually generate the command, the attacker needs to do much more work. So if you have a target, like the example is openevil.com, so you start with the input, pass it to the audio handler, and then you get a candidate, dangle, openevil.com. Now, for this command to be an actual attack command, it has to satisfy two constraints. The first one, that the machine should actually be able to understand this command. If the machine is not able to understand, then it's of no use to me because I won't be able to get or perform the attack successfully. And the second part is, it should be something that it's hard for people to understand. So during the attack generation process, the adversary can listen to a few candidate commands and what he thinks is the best, and he can keep those commands and then discard the rest. Also, the attacker might be able to crowdsource this particular step, such that you generate a command and then you ask Android workers, okay, transcribe these commands, and the one that has the least good amount of transcription can be then chosen as an attack command. And using the feedback from these two steps, we tune our MFCC parameters to move the knob and then get better candidates. So for the machine understanding step, it might seem like the adversary cannot just take every candidate input and then play it over the air to a phone to get a better candidate. That would be really time consuming. So what we did, we took an automated approach where for each candidate, we sent the candidate to Google's speech-to-text recognition API. So in this particular work, we were targeting Google's speech recognition system. And Google has a very nice speech-to-text API that you can send queries to, and it will give you predictions back. So what we did, we sent these envelopes of predictions, and then we compared the predictions with the actual text of what the attack command we are trying to generate. And then if the edit distance between those two texts were less, then we consider it as a good command, and if it was too bad, then we use this feedback to again tune our MFCC parameters to get to some good candidates. So, okay, that's how we generate the attack commands. Now some demos. So this is the first one. This is a recorded demo. So in this, we used like a Samsung Galaxy S4, not S7. And then the phone was placed about 10 feet from the speakers in a normal conference room. And we thought it was. So that was pretty easy. So that particular command said, okay, Google, open xkcd.com, and that's like a benign example. So interestingly, we did set up a website. So what at least the Android does is, if it finds a correct match on the website, it will automatically open that web page if it's among the top search results. So we actually set up a website called web-housing.com, and we put some keywords in such that when you search for like web-planet housing over the voice, it would automatically open that web page. So if an attacker comes up with a search query that is always on top of the results, then it can actually serve malware for downloads and further improve the attack surface. So this particular demo was in the absence of any background noise. The next demo I'm going to show you will have background noise in it. So in the conference room, we had like overhead speakers. So we played the background noises using those overhead speakers and the attack commands with the speakers on the table. So this particular command was like, okay, Google, turn on airplane mode, and then it shows up the menu for turn on airplane mode. One last demo. So this particular command said, okay, Google, show facebook.com, and even though the phone didn't listen to like, okay, Google, it still recognized facebook.com, and it was able to open that web page. Now you all might be thinking like, those doesn't sound very muffled as compared to like white box attack commands. And this is the trade-off that we had to make for it to work for a black box assumption and to work it over the air. And also, we didn't have really good speakers at that time, so maybe if you have good quality speakers, you can further improve the black box attack commands. So again, we did some evaluation using Amazon Mechanical Turk. So we asked people how they thought about the normal command set and what the attack commands were. So for OK Google, machine and human did comparatively okay, like 90% versus 89%. So both were able to understand the normal voice commands. But for the attack commands, machine did even better. Which was kind of surprising to us, but one of the explanations might be that when we do the acoustic features, we are getting rid of everything, every other irrelevant information, and only keeping those points that will hit the machine recognition system correctly. So maybe that's one explanation. Surprisingly, humans were only able to understand it 22% of the time. So going from normal commands to attack commands, you see a huge drop for the efficiency of humans to understand those commands, whereas surprisingly, machine does even better for attack commands. For turn on error mode, we see a similar trend. Machine and human both did equally okay. But for machine, it was able to recognize 45% of the time. But humans were only able to understand it correctly 24% of the time. So still, going from machine to human for attack commands, you see a gap in between the understanding of two types of commands. So to summarize the attacks, white box attacks an open system, assuming the adversary has full knowledge of the system and model, whereas black box is a practical real-world attack which can do against black box speech recognition models. For white box, commands are heavily obfuscated, as you've heard, and in black box, somewhat easier to recognize because of the trade-off of having the black box assumptions. White box and black box both work when played over the air. White box doesn't tolerate any background noise and must be in an echo-free room, whereas black box tolerates background noise and also echo. Great, attack, but what about defenses? So the list I'm going to talk about are it's not a complete list, but they are just a survey of possible defenses that might be promising, going from low usability to high usability. So the first one are simple defenses that notify that are already in there, so you can have a beep, or your phone can vibrate, or your screen can blink or something. So if the human is paying attention, then they might be able to detect what is happening. So if I give a voice command, usually the phones give a feedback, like if I say send text, Google now will say sending text. But if an attacker has a speaker nearby the phone, you can probably play some loud noise which will just overshadow the feedback. Next, defenses that challenge. So the first thing that comes to a challenge when you want to differentiate between humans and machine is a CAPTCHA. So how the CAPTCHA would do in this case, I give a command to my phone, and the phone says, say the passphrase, dry transistor float, or something like that in a muffled voice. Assuming that that voice is really hard for computers to understand and then replay in real time, but the human can do it. But that is not really true anymore. Speech recognition systems are really good these days. And so we did a small thought experiment for a few lines of code, and then we sent the audio CAPTCHA generated by RE CAPTCHA and NLP CAPTCHA to Google's speech recognition system. And Google's speech recognition system is awesome, and it also gives some leeway. The RE CAPTCHA also gives some leeway when trying to solve audio CAPTCHA. So if you have 5 numbers, even if you can guess 4 numbers correctly, it will still allow you to say, okay, yes, you are a human. So this might not be promising, and this also doesn't mean that audio CAPTCHA are completely broken. It just shows that they are not really efficient. Maybe they may not be very efficient for this particular task. The second challenge could be just a password challenge, which is whenever the user start using their voice, it can ask, okay, set a passphrase, an audio passphrase, and the user can set a passphrase, and whenever someone gives an audio command, the user can just have to say the password. But passwords are susceptible to replay attacks. So once the adversary is able to know your password, and unless you change it every day in the morning, this thing will not really prevent the voice attack. So the next set of defenses are something that can detect and prevent the audio attack commands. So the first obvious option would be speaker recognition. Speaker recognition sounds really cool that yes, we can do authentication of voice, but it has some practical challenges. It requires training, which might affect usability in the first place. If you ask the user, okay, if you want to start using Siri, talk to me for 1 hour and say all these phrases, and then I'm going to let you use myself. That may not be really useful. And speaker recognition also has non-negligible false negative rates. What it means is, when I am the legitimate user and I'm trying to get the functionality out of my personal assistant, it might say, oh, I don't recognize your voice because you might have a cold or you have a sore throat. So that kind of things hinders usability. Next, we tried an audio filter. So the idea behind the audio filter is to recall this particular graph. So any voice command which is not an attack command will probably fall in this particular region, like a command I am giving you and you can still understand it. So here, and any command which is like a black box command will probably fall in this particular area. The idea behind the audio filter is, let's say whenever we get any audio command, be it an attack or a normal command, you degrade or you induce some loss in that particular command. So what the loss would do is, if you have an attack command in this area, the loss would probably degrade it below this particular white yellow threshold and put it in this region. But the normal command, if you add some randomized loss, it will still be somewhere here, even though it might not be able, like the humans might not be able to understand it. The good commands will still be recognized by the machine speech recognition system. So we did it with, like, if you induce 8% loss, such that, okay, you have an audio sample and then you sample it randomly without replacement in the time domain itself and keep the 92% of information. We see that the accuracy of the attack, black box attack, goes from 45% to about 23%, but it only affects the normal commands by not being able to recognize them from like 1% of the time. So the usability of this might be a usable defense to actually prevent the attack from happening. The other one is we came up with a simple machine learning classifier. We built a logistic regression classifier using midterm features, right from short-term features. And the first thing we did is we had a corpus of our attack command and normal commands, and then we trained our classifier on that, and then did a 10-fold cross-validation. And if you see these two, the diagonal numbers, like 49.9% and 49.9%.
You got kind of the one I was going for as well as an additional one. Yeah.
Okay. That would be really hard to go like to an air like that. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, the hidden voice attack is very, very inspiring. And the difference between voice and image is that the voice commands can be used to launch more active attacks. Yes, and attackers can even use broadcast to launch such attacks. This is very dangerous.
Thank you.
For voice or this threat. Thank you. Yeah, and we will have 15 minutes for tea break. There are cakes and waters outside. Please enjoy them. We will